I'll pause here and skip to the end. School is horrible now. If you've watched any TV show in the past that takes place in a school, you've likely been grossly misled by what modern school life is like. It's not like Saved by the Bell or Head of the Class, Boy Meets World, Beverly Hills 90210, nothing like that. Classes are typically quite rigid and structured. There is no time to walk around aimlessly between classes. In the two districts where I've worked, lockers are no longer allowed, and backpacks must be clear, plastic, or mesh, both presumably due to threats of violence or drugs. Some districts are removing libraries and librarians, or at least drastically cutting back on where they work. Others have librarians rotating through assigned schools, visiting campuses on a schedule like divorced parents. The writing's been on the wall for a while now. So what was my final straw? I stumbled into teaching later in life. I wasn't trained for it. I didn't go to school for it. I don't have a degree in education, no formal anything. I decided to be a substitute teacher in 2013. I needed money, and my mom, a former educator herself, suggested it. So I ended up subbing exclusively at the elementary right around the corner from our house where my three daughters attended. After subbing for a year, I decided to get my alternative certification. I had been teaching psychology as an adjunct for a few online colleges, but those positions had started to dry up for a variety of reasons. More money would be great, so here I went. I started the 2014 school year as a long-term sub for the adaptive behavior class. As a teacher, left that one for a new position. Around a month or so in, a third grade teacher got a job at the district level, and that made an opening, so I applied. Her partner teacher ended up being one of the first ones I worked with, vouched for me to the principal, and I was hired on a conditional employment pending completion of training. So I learned as I went while still studying and preparing for the various certifications I'd have to pass. Eventually, I passed the EC6 and ESL certifications. I was granted that class that I was teaching, became mine, and my teaching career was officially underway. I'd end up teaching third grade math and science for 3 years, and then fifth grade math and science for another 3. I got to teach some kids twice doing this, and I got to see my youngest at school every single day. I was the token male teacher in most aspects, and I loved the mini celebrity status that afforded me. A year after my youngest left, I was ready for change. This was after COVID. I was ready to advance for a while now, but no matter how many jobs I applied for in that first district, I only got one interview. That was it. And that interview only came after I got certified to teach science 4 through 8. Eventually, towards the end of 2021, I had applied to a variety of surrounding ISDs, and a principal in what I'll call District 2 interviewed me for a science teacher at the middle school we'll call School 2. She hired me, and I did a year of 7th grade science there with one 8th grade science class and one 6th grade period, which was kind of like a study hall, offering character lessons and other such things, and then mandatory practice on math and reading. I'd hoped to be the old school study hall where students could catch up, do extra work, get help, finish homework, or even just rest, but no, every single minute of their day was planned. It was feared unaccounted for time would lead to misbehavior. I loved the schedule in middle school. You only had kids for about 45 minutes, give or take. Some periods were slightly longer than others. So even the worst kids, the most frustrating kids, were only there for that long. It was tough sometimes, but I really just loved being around kids. I was learning more and more about myself, how to better myself as a teacher to meet a variety of different kids' needs. It was great. I could have stayed, but I felt I was reaching the end of what I could do in the classroom, and I didn't want to burn out. Students, in my experience, aren't as intrinsically motivated as I hoped. Each year it seemed to get worse. They only want to succeed just enough to keep their parents off their back. Precious few wanted to learn for the value of education, or wanted to get a 90 instead of an 80 due to what it represented. They'd much rather play the myriad of free browser games or text each other. Several times in a GT or advanced class, I'd have students essentially say they're fine with an 80 and decline the option to improve it or work on something else. They just needed it done. I created a variety of fun projects, and while some enjoyed it, most wanted to do the bare minimum and complete it and then be done and back to socializing or playing. When reaching out to parents, the general response was apathy. I got a fair bit of, yeah, he does that at home too, or, well, what do you want me to do? Admin kind of tried to help, but their hands were tied too by the suits in the district buildings. So everything revolves around the all-important state assessment score. I went on to try and find something else, something still in education but not a classroom teaching position. Teaching is incredibly draining for a variety of reasons. I'm not an extrovert, so being on drains me quickly. I love talking and public speaking, but I have to constantly discipline and monitor students drastically cuts into the good time. It's on your feet, talking constantly. Getting sick or injured is tough, as just get bed rest isn't an option. The hardest part is likely the planning. Teachers must have plans submitted to be checked or reviewed by admin or other middle management. In my humble opinion, these people just want specific words or phrases in there so they can say it's in there and tick a box on their report to their admin to say, yep, we did this. You have to list specific students and their accommodations. You must list the differentiated instruction you're doing to help bring up students if they're at a lower level. You must have things like a do now or an exit ticket or whatever else the buzzword bingo items are that are here today, gone tomorrow. So to get those plans in on time with the ever-changing requirements met demands constant work. And that's all just when you're on campus and teaching. Going to be absent, out sick, need to take your own child to a doctor? Well now you need more work. First, you have to have detailed lesson plans on backup for a sub, knowing few subs will hold students to the task and actually get them to do the required work. I tried to list reliable students I trusted to help the sub. I gave a seating chart, explained attendance, and assume you have a sub that's never been there before. You can't afford any downtime as most students innately seek to disrupt subs one way or the other. And forget about instructions. Most work for the subs is busy work or something self-paced, hoping the students will be okay and not destroy your room. It wasn't uncommon for a sub to leave a note saying, I'll not be returning to this campus. I didn't have it happen, but I've read many such messages left behind in other classrooms. So, now being out, you miss the actual planning period you would have used to continue planning, so when you do get back, you're further behind than one might assume. I cannot think of another career where the employee must do so much intricate pre-planning and work prior to being out. It discourages teachers from missing any time, as it's simply an ordeal to overcome. So we go to work sick, tired, sad, stressed, and we miss a lot in life as it's simply easier than taking care of ourselves. I had my wife, who had a much better and higher paying job, taking time off to take the kids to the doctor appointments, as being absent stressed me out so much. It did for every teacher I knew. So I knew I needed to get out before it cost me. I honed in on a particularly interesting position called a digital learning specialist in this second district. Essentially, this position was to teach the teachers on how to use the district's tech, things like Schoology and other classroom management systems. There were other things like helping with the grade book or being the school's webmaster, which paid a whopping $200 a year, and a ton of variety, ad hoc, come fix this because you're the tech guy tasks. So this job placed me at a middle school I'll call School C. And this one was particularly at the bottom of all district ratings. I ended up loving it though, as the population was quite varied from what I was familiar with. The percentage of white students enrolled was 4%. The vast majority of these on campus spoke Spanish and English, and some exclusively Spanish. I was also assigned an elementary school to serve, but in the 2 years of this job, I could not get that principal to put me on schedule for anything. I'd show up on my own and roam around the campus and trying to sell them on whatever tech the district was pushing, and I always felt like an intruder. I hated it. During this time, I started using Schoology as a way to run a few polls and post neat things for the students. I called it Wyatt's World of Wonder. I've always had my stuff for students, back to School A, the elementary campus, where I shared all the stuff that I thought was neat, related to science like an upcoming eclipse, all the way down to free comic book day. For a while, in 5th grade, I took home my document camera once a week, and I live streamed on Zoom a free online tutorial session for all of 5th grade on how to do math. I'd answer questions on the fly, I gave examples for the students to work, you name it. I'd average 30 kids a night. So tutoring for all 6 classes, not just my 2, that was a task. Then twice a year before the biggest tests, I did a live stream on YouTube with walkthroughs. culminating in a superstar review for the district test. I'd save these and leave them uploaded for anyone to review, and I even got a comment on YouTube once from a student out of state who randomly found one of my videos and appreciated it. So suffice to say, I went above and beyond on my own, and I might have got an accolade here or there, but there was rarely any real recognition or praise from peers or admin. Maybe they just thought, oh, that's James, that's what Mr. Wyatt does. I don't know. So while working my job at School C, I got into Wyatt's World of Wonder as an extra Schoology course, and I would post maybe twice a day polls and announcements and fun stuff. I let him know again, of course, when eclipses were coming or what the storm or weather patterns were showing. I celebrated everything I could and got a lot of love for Black History Month facts. I gave shout-outs to classes for great academic performances, and I shared just on the okay side of cringy memes. I loved it. Halfway through the second year, I was told to stop. At the middle of my last year, I was called in by the new administration and told I was no longer allowed to use Schoology for posting like I was. And here's a few pieces of what I showed. Just neat stuff, offering polls for the kids to look at, talk about, share with each other, and they would stop me in the hallways regularly and ask me what I thought about these things. The story was, admin didn't want me using my time on this, and they didn't want the kids distracted. Many teachers talked about how their students loved these updates and these fun little projects in the courses. I'm sure some didn't like it, but honestly, I lumped those in with the teachers who don't successfully control their students' online activities to begin with. Concerning my time, it was a fraction of the day. Most of the links and the stories I found on my own at home, and I emailed it to my work email, and the next day, right when I got in early in the morning, because I was always an hour early, I could post 2 or 3 things online. Ultimately, all this boils down to a horrible, dull sense of boredom and sameness. It's all about star scores and other metrics valued at the district's highest levels. Few, if any, of the principals, let alone the district suits, care about the experiences of children. They're not in the classroom, save a few token visits or photo ops. Now, I did have great experiences with the district reps in this second district. My 1 year in that 7th grade class, I used a Skype the Scientist session to be paired with a scientist and do a live Skype chat. We were fortunate to find someone in Nova Scotia, Canada, to address my class on various aspects of physiological traits and answer anything we could come up with. On a whim, I invited the superintendent via email, and imagine my surprise when she joined. She didn't have to, but man, that really impressed me. So I'm wondering now, would that even be allowed? Would I have to jump through hoops to get this approved? I was the GT Showcase co-lead. We were told we could not use that little planning period for the GT students in my final year. School B did it the year I was there. School C did it the first year, and then nope. That second year, we were reduced to almost 100% of work outside of school hours. It was pulling teeth for anything else. These were already the best and the brightest kids. Many of them had nearly perfect scores. Why did they need extra practice? Instead, admin wanted these guys to research these incredible passion projects on their own. The kids loved it. They wanted to do it, but they liked working together and being in the library and asking adults questions. So the TV shows like to depict these kids doing a variety of science fair projects or events, and in my experience, very little, if any, of it happens. Admin shuts it down. It's just not allowed. It's incredibly difficult to have fun on a campus, particularly off-the-cuff events as they happen. Any video shown at my last campus is now required to have prior approval. Sometimes campuses have these approved by a principal. Some districts have a dedicated staff in charge of reviewing them. How can we possibly run everything by these people? I want to show breaking news in science. I used to show live stream volcanoes erupting in Iceland or footage of a space launch or whatever it might be, but it's all out the window now. Getting that approved would be an act of Congress. Clearly, some people do care. Evidently, not enough of them are in a position, though, to make a difference. I've heard of teachers the day before school starts not having enough desks and chairs in their rooms, but getting sent home for wearing shorts to in-service. That was the priority. I tracked a graph of how many teachers we had absent for a whole year and how many subs we had on campus that day. Other than 5 days a semester, It was always a deficit, more absent than present. That meant we had to split classes, which meant 30 kids dispersed to assigned locations, but of course they rarely went where they were told and instead hung out in the library, playing on their phones or computers for a whole period. We'd have days with 15 teachers out and maybe 3 subs. It happened over and over. Again, subs would tell us they just don't want to return to that campus. What was admin's response? Oh, telling us to keep going to the meetings, keep getting the lessons planned 2 weeks in advance minimum, keep having tutoring, you get the idea. So I packed up in the summer 2024, anticipating I would not be returning. We did have a few medical things to work through at home, but I knew I also wasn't happy and I was not going to have anything else lined up. I'd get another job in a different field and hope to resume teaching kids either at church or volunteering on down the line. But education is clearly being politicized to death. We're already behind so many of the other nations. So I'm out. I miss the kids terribly. I miss a sense of meaning or reason I had when I left work daily. And obviously I miss the mini celebrity status of being cool Mr. Wyatt on the campus. I miss the vacation times and the guaranteed holiday breaks, but really I just miss interacting with kids and trying to explain how special they are, how valuable they are, and how needed they are. I loved high-fiving and fist-bumping kids, whether I knew them or not. I loved getting hugs from kids at random and being invited to come see their sporting events and after-school things or to play in the band alongside them. I fear now the changes that we're making, including all this mess with the Department of Education, students are going to become even more ill-prepared. They're not going to know how to have happy, fruitful, joyous lives, and instead they're being trained and shoehorned for corporate drone life. I know it's cynical and jaded. I wish I had something better to say on it. Hopefully I'm proven wrong. I'd be thrilled if we could turn things around. But as of now, I just don't see how.